Are you a clairvoyant? Clairvoyance is the claimed psychic ability to gain information about an object, person, location, or physical event through extrasensory perception. Any person who is claimed to have such ability is said to be a clairvoyant. One who sees clearly. Claims for the existence of paranormal and psychic abilities, such as clairvoyance, have not been supported by scientific evidence. Parapsychology explores this possibility, but the existence of the paranormal is not accepted by the scientific community. The scientific community widely considers parapsychology, including the study of clairvoyance, a pseudoscience pertaining to the ability of clearsightedness. Clairvoyance refers to the paranormal ability to see persons and events that are distant in time or space. It can be divided into roughly three classes: precognition, the ability to perceive or predict future events; retrocognition, the ability to see past events; and remote viewing, the perception of contemporary events happening outside the range of normal perception. Throughout history, there have been numerous places and times in which people have claimed themselves or others to be clairvoyant. In several religions, stories of certain individuals being able to see things far removed from their immediate sensory perception are commonplace, especially within pagan religions where oracles were used. Prophecy often involved some degree of clairvoyance, especially when future events were predicted. This ability has sometimes been attributed to a higher power rather than to the person performing it. Number of Christian saints were said to be able to see or know things that were far removed from their immediate sensory perception as a kind of gift from God, including Columba of Iona, Padre Pio, and Catherine Emmerich. Jesus Christ in the Gospels is also recorded as being able to know things that were far removed from his immediate human perception. Some Christians today also share the same claim. In Jainism, clairvoyance is regarded as one of the 5 kinds of knowledge. The beings of hell and heaven devas are said to possess clairvoyance by birth. According to Jain text Sarvarthasiddhi, this kind of knowledge has been called a vadi, as it ascertains matter in downward range or knows objects within limits. Rudolf Steiner, famous as a clairvoyant himself, claimed that for a clairvoyant, it is easy to confuse his own emotional and spiritual being with the objective spiritual world. The earliest record of somnambulist clairvoyance is credited to the Marquis de Puysegur, a follower of Franz Mesmer, who in 1784 was treating a local dull-witted peasant named Victor Race. During treatment, Race reportedly would go into trance and undergo a personality change, becoming fluent and articulate, and giving diagnosis and prescription for his own disease as well as those of others. Clairvoyance was a reported ability of some mediums during the spiritualist period of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and psychics of many descriptions have claimed clairvoyant ability up to the present day. Early researchers of clairvoyance included William Gregory, Gustav Pagenstecker, and Rudolf Tischner. Clairvoyance experiments were reported in 1884 by Charles Richet. Playing cards were enclosed in envelopes, and a subject put under hypnosis attempted to identify them. The subject was reported to have been successful in a series of 133 trials, but the results drop to chance level when performed before a group of scientists in Cambridge. J.M. Pierce and E.C. Pickering report a similar experiment in which they tested 36 subjects over 380 for trials which did not obtain above chance scores. Ivor Lloyd Tuckett 1911 and Joseph McCabe 1920 analyzed early cases of clairvoyance and came to the conclusion they were best explained by coincidence or fraud. In 1919, the magician P.T. Selbit staged a seance at his own flat in Bloomsbury. The spiritualist Arthur Conan Doyle attended the seance and declared the clairvoyance manifestations to be genuine. A significant development in clairvoyance research came when J.B. Ryan, a parapsychologist at Duke University, introduced a standard methodology with a standard statistical approach to analyzing data as part of his research into extrasensory perception. A number of psychological departments attempted to repeat Ryan's experiments, with failure. W.S. Cox 1936 from Princeton University, with 132 subjects produced 25/64 trials in a playing card ESP experiment. Cox concluded there is no evidence of extrasensory perception either in the average man, or of the group investigated, or in any particular individual of that group. The discrepancy between these results and those obtained by Ryan is due either to uncontrollable factors in experimental procedure or to the difference in the subjects for other psychological DPARTME and TS fail to replicate Ryan's results. It was revealed that Ryan's experiments contain methodological flaws and procedural errors. Eileen Garrett was tested by Ryan at Duke University in 1933 with Zener cards, certain symbols that were placed on the cards and sealed in an envelope, and she was asked to guess their contents. She performed poorly and later criticized the test by claiming the cards lacked a psychic energy, called energy stimulus, and that she could not perform clairvoyance to order. The parapsychologist Samuel Soule and his colleagues tested Garrett in May 1937. Most of the experiments were carried out in the psychological laboratory at the University College London. A total of over 12,000 guesses were recorded, but Garrett failed to produce above chance level. In his report, Soule wrote in the case of Mrs. Eileen Garrett, "We failed to find the slightest confirmation of Dr. J.B. Ryan's remarkable claims relating to her alleged powers of extrasensory perception. Not only did she fail when I took charge of the experiments, but she failed equally when for other carefully trained experimenters took my place. Remote viewing, also known as remote sensing, remote perception, telesthesia, and traveling clairvoyance, is the alleged paranormal ability to perceive a remote or hidden target without support of the senses. A well-known study of remote viewing in recent times has been the U.S. government-funded project at the Stanford Research Institute. During the 1970s through the mid-1990s, in 1972, Harold Puthoff and Russell Targ initiated a series of human subject studies to determine whether participants, the viewers or percipients, could reliably identify and accurately describe salient features of remote locations or targets. In the early studies, a human sender was typically present at the remote location as part of the experiment protocol. A three-step process was used, the first step being to randomly select the target conditions to be experienced by the senders. Secondly, in the viewing step, participants were asked to verbally express or sketch their impressions of the remote scene. Thirdly, in the judging step, these descriptions were matched by separate judges as closely as possible with the intended targets. The term remote viewing was coined to describe this overall process. The first paper by Puthoff and Targ on remote viewing was published in Nature in March 1974. In it, the team reported some degree of remote viewing success after the publication of these findings. Other attempts to replicate the experiments were carried out with remotely linked groups. Using computer conferencing, the psychologists David Marks and Richard Kamen attempted to replicate Targ and Puthoff's remote viewing experiments that were carried out in the 1970s at the Stanford Research Institute in a series of 35 studies. They were unable to replicate the results, so investigated the procedure of the original experiments. Marks and Kamen discovered that the notes given to the judges in Targ and Puthoff's experiments contained clues as to which order they were carried out, such as referring to yesterday's to targets, or they had the date of the session written at the top of the page. They concluded that these clues were the reason for the experiment's high hit rates. Marks was able to achieve 100% accuracy without visiting any of the sites himself, but by using cues. James Randi has written controlled tests by several other researchers, eliminating several sources of cueing and extraneous evidence present in the original tests, produced negative results. Students were also able to solve Puthoff and Targ's locations from the clues that had inadvertently been included in the transcripts. If you think that you are a clairvoyant, comment down below. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like, and share.